Today, we're going to talk about how even though our ancestors may no longer be alive in their own bodies, they continue to exist in ours. And I love the implication that our ancestors are relevant in our daily lives. So can you tell us, how does this work?
Well, first of all, it wouldn't be a surprise to anyone that was not raised in Western culture to think of their ancestors as still alive. It's only those of us in Western culture that have set the ancestors in the past and kind of tuck them away with the family heirlooms, you know. To most indigenous people, the ancestors are living presences that need to be fed, cared for, and honored. And they assume that the ancestors are participating in life, and therefore they need to be cared for in the same way that quote unquote living people are. And an interesting thing, the European Psychological Association did a series of scientific tests. You know, they do the kind of tests with a control, and then they have several different variations. And what they found out through all the different variations was that people who thought about their ancestors, whether they knew them or not, or whether they even liked them or not, did statistically better on problem solving and intelligence tests. So what that means is, if you think of those two tests, they really quantify how well we do the earth plane. You know, are we able to solve problems? Are we able to think clearly? And that improved when anybody thought about their ancestors, even if they had to imagine them 500 years ago. So that tells me two things. One, it tells me as a shamanic practitioner that we have somehow engaging their spirits by remembering them. But I think we also must awaken something inside our own bodies, because all of those ancestors contributed their DNA to us. And we know that there's a great deal of DNA that we don't yet understand. So I imagine that it's this combination of having this horde of ancestors behind me, and also that I awaken them in my physical body so that I'm able to then tackle things in the earth plane with a lot more facility and really a lot more ease. So that idea that they're alive is something that we are having to relearn in our culture. And it's coming to us in very interesting ways, because now people are studying their ancestors. They've got Ancestor.com, and they've got, you know, all the Genographic Project from the National Geographic, and all these different organizations that are helping people to decode who they actually are. And that interest, I think, is coming two ways. Yes, our science has developed the ability to understand the DNA and unlock the secrets to some degree that are held there. But I think it's the ancestors too that are saying, you folks are in deep doo-doo. You people in the 21st century need us. And so we're going to find a way to put the thoughts into other people's minds, scientists, put the thoughts into people who are creating these organizations to make the connection with us again. For you need us. We want to see you succeed. You are our living representatives in the world. We want to support you. We want to care for you. I think of them as all these loving parents and grandparents with many, 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 many greats behind us going, I want you to thrive. And I think they're impressing on individuals out in the culture to reunite us with those energies.
Okay, I love how you started out here. And I know just from experience of doing this, that a lot of people, they might try the Ancestry.com route. I know I've become obsessed with genealogy, but there are people who were either adopted or abandoned, or God only knows what their story is, where they don't know who their ancestors are. So what's your take on how somebody who doesn't know who they came from, how can you work with this?
Well, I want to say several things about that, because in our ancestry, whether we know our parents or not, at some point along the line, we were taken in by another family. Our history as a species has several bottlenecks along the way where there are very, very few human beings. And if we did not take care of the children, we would not have succeeded as a species. So I can guarantee that no matter what your present circumstance is, somewhere along the line, you were cared for by people that were not your immediate family. So that's something I always like to share with adoptees because they feel disconnected. The second thing is that every single living human being on the planet is carrying in their bodies the mitochondrial DNA that comes from one particular woman who was alive in Africa 180,000 years ago. So it doesn't change. Mitochondrial DNA, mitochondria is the little powerhouse in a cell that helps us take food and turn it into energy. And that doesn't mix. The DNA that's in a nucleus of a cell, you get half from mom and half from dad. But your mitochondrial DNA comes to you as a little intact package from your mother. Both men and women receive it, and it's in everybody's cells, but only women can pass it on. So only a woman who has a daughter, who has a child, and so forth, can pass on mitochondrial DNA. Because it only changes through mutation, they've been able to plot the course of our spreading out on the planet. Because that, again, only changes through mutation, and you're able to then trace this elaborate pathway we have made as a species, several migrations out of Africa. And all of that package in our mitochondria goes back to the very, very first woman that had that particular mitochondrial DNA. She wasn't the only one alive at the time, but her package happened to be passed along. So we all share a common ancestor. That has been proven. So even if you're adopted, that mitochondrial grandmother, many, many, many times great-grandmother, is there for you. And she is there for me and everyone. So you could always make contact with that. We also have, besides our blood ancestors, I think of us having other kinds of ancestors. If somebody is adopted, they have been adopted by people who have become their milk ancestors. So they're not blood ancestors, they're milk ancestors, those ones that have nurtured you as if you were their family. They have become your parents, become your grandparents. And I think of those in my life as the people I was told to refer to as aunt and uncle when I was a little girl. They might have been friends of the family, they might have been people that were neighbors, and as a sign of respect, we referred to them as aunt and uncle, but they were nurturing presences. You know, you could always go over to a particular friend's house and their mom would be good to you, and whatever it was, especially if you were feeling grumpy about your own parents, you could go over there to them. And that is present for you as an adoptee, and that is part of your support. You have the DNA in your body of your blood ancestors, but you also have the nurturance of milk ancestors around you, and they count. They count very, very highly because nurturance is something that's woven as a fabric. And it can't be the sole job of two parents to weave that fabric because we're designed as social primates. We began in small groups like hunter-gatherers, and it required all those people to weave us into who we were. Growing up as a child, you'd have the input of all these adults helping us to know how to be an adult ourselves. So weave those back into your life if you worry about not having blood ancestors that you can contact. Remember that the blood ancestors live inside you, and when you can enter that realm of the invisible world through journeying or meditation, you can contact them. But remember that the weaving of your milk ancestors is just as important. I also honor what I call spirit ancestors. Now, they are not anyone that's either related to me, and they may not even be people. I think of, for instance, the spirit of the North Atlantic Ocean as my spirit ancestor. It is a being. We refer to everything as alive when we're shamanic practitioners. It is a being that was responsible for nurturing my parents and grandparents on and on in Europe. Then in waves starting in 400 years ago, my ancestors came to North America across that water and were nurtured by the same ocean here. A lot of fishermen in my family, fishermen and boat builders and what have you. So that body of water that we have named the North Atlantic Ocean, even though we only have one great ocean on our planet, is this presence in my life. I would not be alive, nor would I be alive in North America if it were not for that spirit. So all of these, I think, are part of weaving us as whole people to be able to feel authentically whole means that we have to attend to that weaving, caring for that weaving, knowing that weaving, and then participating in the weaving of the young that are around us. So we add our thread, whether we're milk ancestors to somebody or we're their blood ancestors, we put the best possible thread that we can put into their weaving so that they can then step forward and be an adult.